US, you have four distinct categories. Actually, three distinct categories with meat chickens, four with egg-laying hens. So with meat chickens, three categories. So you got the cage-free, which I would stay away from. That's basically like an enclosed barn. They never go outside, right? They're under artificial lights. They're just fed a bunch of GMO grains. Also in their water, they just have antibiotics in the water, actually. So they're constantly exposed to antibiotics as well. And so one issue I have is a lot of people are like, like in America, especially, there you get an average person that's like on four different pharmaceuticals directly, and they're like, I don't want my chicken to have antibiotics. I'm like, dude, you're on four pharmaceuticals directly. Let's work on getting off of that. So I have an issue. Once again, sick people can't make healthy decisions, and I feel the level of health has become delusional, at least in the U.S. For the most part. And so you got the cage-free, barn, enclosed, chemically treated GMO grains fed to these animals, not a species-specific diet. I would definitely stay away from that. Then you got the free range, which is, for the most part, in most cases, not every case, pretty much the same as the cage-free. They're pretty much the same. Then you have the pasture-raised option. Now, there are various levels of integrity of pasture-raised, right? So you got to keep that into consideration, be flexible there. But at the grocery store level, that one's going to be far better off usually than the other ones. A lot like the square footage of space per hen in like a cage-free and a free-range operation is about like 2 square foot of space per hen. So you're looking at a pasture-raised operation. Typically, it's about 10 square feet of space per hen. Not crazy, but it's still kind of a lot more. And then some operations, like I volunteered to learn about regenerative poultry operations at happy-hens.com. So theirs is, I forgot exactly, I think 220 square feet of space per hen. Okay, it's been like a few years since I worked there, obviously. They don't feed their hens corn and soy. Okay, and they're outside 24/7, and they rotate them. Daily onto new pasture. This is important because you don't want a lot of stocking density in your hens, because they eat up all the worms, and that way there's less worms per hen, etc. So you have to have more feed. And you don't want to keep them on the same piece of land. So you want to rotate them often. And that's going to basically be dependent on the type of land you're dealing with, plus your stocking density of your herd. So the bigger the stocking density, typically the more often, the faster you have to rotate them. So 220 square foot of space, no corn and soy, plus daily rotation. That's going to be the optimum. A lot of times too, people get non-GMO confused with organic. Non-GMO simply just means that it's a non-genetically modified seed, but it can still be grown with a lot of synthetic biocides, which once again are systemic and tend to get soaked up by the root of the crop and make it into the nutritional profile of the crop, which then the hens end up eating, and it bioaccumulates into the tissue of the hens, and then you end up eating that meat or that egg, whichever issue. And another issue with stocking density that's a bit under the table, and a lot of people don't look at as well, is when you jam-pack animals into a confined operation, it causes various issues. So the most obvious one is the animals tend to be more stressed. And when the animal is under higher stress, their liver tends to release too many serum amyloid A proteins. And those, when not metabolized because they're released in excess, break off into amyloid A proteins, which form as plaque on the organ tissue, and to a smaller extent, the muscle tissue of the organism. And that plaque is not able to be metabolized. And then obviously humans are eating that as well. It's most often present in animals that allow a longer lifespan. So for example, egg-laying hens, it's about 2 years, or cattle, it's about like a year or 2 years, depending on the operation, et cetera, et cetera. So with like a broiler chicken, because the turnaround time is quite fast, you might not have a lot of amyloid A buildup there for sure, but that's yet to be known. So I don't think anyone has really tested the duration of life with animals, et cetera, in regards to amyloids. Also, when you jam-pack them in these facilities. Obviously, there's a lot of bacteria, and their immune system is constantly stressed trying to fight all this off. And that also releases more serum amyloid A proteins from the liver. Also, various vaccines given to the animals release amyloid A proteins from the liver as well due to overstressing the central nervous system. So stuff like that. So that's an important thing to consider as well. So obviously when they're having more space, once again, the key thing, like I mentioned in the beginning, is we want to get away from human interaction with the food, right? The more natural, the more species specific the food is, the more natural the crop is grown, the better off you're going to be personally.